Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Larregui, and I am a Marketing Cloud Developer Advocate at Salesforce on the Developer Relations team. I first want to say thank you to all of our wonderful sponsors here at French Touch Dreaming, and I will be presenting to you on Genie, that wonderful product that was just announced at Dreamforce back in September. I realized I didn't put a slide a little bit about myself, so I'm just going to talk about myself, just so you guys have a little bit of a brief background on me. So I've been at Salesforce for 3 years. I first started in our customer success group as a consultant, traveling to mostly financial services and manufacturing clients, doing implementations on Salesforce. I've been in tech for about 10 years. No one ever believes me because they think I just graduated college. I don't know why. But I've been in tech for 10 years, and I've been with the Salesforce, working with the Salesforce platform for about 8 years, as well as the Marketing Cloud platform as well. And I currently live in Dallas, Texas, which is in America. And this is my first time ever to Paris, ever to France as well. So I was really, really excited to come here. Okay, there we go. And so I know you guys are very familiar with this forward-looking statement slide. Anytime an employee presents, I may make some statements about future product enhancements or things on the roadmap. Please make sure that you're making all of your purchasing decisions based upon what is available in the Salesforce platform today. All right, so we're first going to talk about the problem that we seek to solve. So a lot of companies, they have a lot of disparate systems that are storing many different types of data that different teams might need access to. So maybe you have your service team, maybe you have your sales team, a commerce team, and they all need access to different data that's being stored across the company. So what we seek to do with Genie is to solve for this type of issue, where different teams across many different lines of business are able to access the same types of data in a unified manner. And so here's our hero, Salesforce Genie. And what Genie does is it brings all of that data together into a single source of truth or a single point of view. And we are going to have a live demo today on Genie and the Salesforce platform that is built on the customer data platform. And I know you guys saw this really cool buzzword. So Genie, yes, parts of Genie are real time. So we have what's called the ingestion API that is broken down into 2 different APIs. One of them is the streaming API and the bulk API. Now, the streaming API is real time, and it works mostly with your web and mobile data. So you can set the intervals that you want that data to get into Genie, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but it will flow in real time into Genie. We also have real-time Einstein analytics that's built on the platform, so that if you want to make those next best recommendations based on the data that's stored into Genie, you can do that. And also, our entire platform works with Hyperforce, which is our public cloud secure model, and it's very, very scalable as well. All right, so the very first thing that you have to do with Genie is think about the source systems that you want to pull your data from to get the data into Genie. So let's think a little bit about where our data might be stored today, right? So in Service Cloud, you might have some case data, some incidents, tickets that have been opened by your customers. In Sales Cloud, you might have that contact, that account, that lead, opportunity data that the sales team is working on. If you have Marketing Cloud, you might have some email messaging data in terms of open rates, click rates, some SMS outbound data in terms of like what messages have been sent, some of the interactions, journey data. And then Commerce Cloud, you can have some of that order data, purchasing history. And then we also might have a website or a mobile site that your company built that's storing data as well. And even with Experience Cloud, you might have some custom portal data, like in terms of the last login or some type of interactions that may have happened on the Experience Cloud platform. So What Genie really seeks to do is to take all that data and pull it into one single source of truth. And so, how do we do that? Well, Genie has connectors, and starting with Commerce Cloud, Service Cloud, Sales Cloud, and Marketing Cloud, those connectors enable you to pull that data into Genie. And then we also have a file based approach with Google Cloud Storage as well as Amazon S3 to get data into Genie. And then MuleSoft as well, anything that you can connect MuleSoft to via Anypoint. The Anypoint connector can also pull data into Genie. And then Genie also has a multitude of SDKs. We have a web SDK that will connect to your websites. We have a mobile SDK that will connect to your mobile app. And we also have a Calculated Insights API that will pull data in via Calculated Insights. And so what this all does is it, once again, is just harmonizing all of this data. So we have data stored in all these different systems, right? Maybe your Sales Cloud, your Service Cloud, maybe your homegrown website, homegrown mobile app, even in MuleSoft. And we are seeking to pull all this data into Genie to build that single source of truth. So we don't just want to pull that data in, right? Because then it's just stagnant data that we can't do anything with. What we really are seeking to do is to do something with that data. So one of the things you can do with Genie is segmentations. And with segments, you can kind of build like an audience that you're trying to target. Let's say you want to build a segment is like people that didn't purchase within the last 30 days. People maybe you sent an email to that haven't interacted with you in the last month or so. So you can build different segments based off of different filtering criteria. And it's very easy. It's a drag and drop interface, which I'll show you in the demo later on. You can also build calculated insights, which is a way to kind of create formulas, aggregations, any type of mathematical transformations on your data. And we even can connect Genie to Tableau as well to start building those Tableau dashboards and analytics. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this slide. I know that it might be a little bit hard to see because we're trying to fit a lot of information on this slide. But so here you can see what's real time versus what is batch in terms of getting data into Genie. So we talked a little bit earlier about that web and mobile data, being able to set those intervals via the streaming API to get data into Genie real time. The MuleSoft connector also has the ability to use the streaming API to get data in as well, real time. And then the rest of it, some of those out-of-the-box bundles and connectors from a Service Cloud, Sales Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and Commerce Cloud perspective, those will come in via batch. It's very easy. You schedule it via the UI, whether you want it to come in hourly, daily, monthly. And then that S3, that Amazon S3 data, Google Cloud Storage data, all of that comes in via batch as well. Okay, so I know some people may have some concerns around data privacy. So these are all of the data privacy standards that Genie is meeting today, just in case you guys were curious. And another thing that you can do with these bundles and data kits is you can package them up. So if you build a really, really cool bundle or data kit that you think might be useful to somebody else, you can send it up to the App Exchange for them to be able to use. If you are curious if there's already a bundle or data kit available that you might want to use, you can also go to the App Exchange and look for those and download them to your CDP and Genie. And then we also have a numerous amount of APIs that you can use with Genie as well. If you are familiar with our developer blog, you can see an article that I wrote about some of those, and the streaming API, the bulk API, and the calculated insights API, and how you guys can use those and what you can do with them. All right, so now we are going to get into our demo of Genie. All right, so you might have seen this if you went to Dreamforce. In the Customer 360 area, we have our fictitious company, Solar Circles. Fun fact, I created the logo for this in Illustrator. And Solar Circles is basically an energy company that sells solar panels. And we're going to walk through how Solar Circles uses Genie to get their information into the customer data platform and what they're able to do with it. So remember, the very first thing that we must start with is our data streams. And data streams is once again how we are getting our data into Genie. So Solar Circles has already set up a few data streams, which we see right here. And I'm going to click New just to show you some of the connectors. And so here are all of our Genie connectors. We have our Marketing Cloud connector that allows us to bring in our email data from our associated Marketing Cloud platform. We have our Salesforce CRM connector that allows you to bring in your Sales Cloud and Service Cloud data. We have our Commerce Cloud connector, which allows you to bring in things like orders and order history. We have our mobile app connector, which allows you to connect your company's mobile app. We have our ingestion API, which allows you to build your own custom API via streaming or bulk. And once again, the streaming API is where your real-time data will come into Genie, and the bulk API will be coming in via batch. We have our interaction studio, which is going to capture any type of interactions that are within Marketing Cloud from the interaction studio. And then, once again, our file-based connectors for Google Cloud Storage and Amazon S3. And then those App Exchange data kits and packages can be downloaded via this connector. And then we have our MuleSoft connector, which will pull in data via the MuleSoft Anypoint connector and platform. Okay, so I'm going to close out of this. And so we're going to take a look at what one of our data streams looks like. So I'm going to click into this contacts data stream. And in our contacts data stream, we can see we have all of our fields that are currently mapped. And we can review these mappings by clicking here. And what this is doing is really when you create a data stream, so you choose your source system, on the back end of Genie are what are called data lake objects. All right, so you're going to have to map whatever your source is to your data lake objects. You're going to define what's called a standard object, a custom object, and then there are fields or attributes. So similar to what you might think of in terms of an S object in an actual Salesforce CRM system. And there's many of these that are out of the box, but if there's one that's not fitting your use case, there's also the ability to make custom data lake objects as well. And so here you can see all of our mappings. From the data stream on the left to our data lake objects and attributes on the right. And I will be leaving time for Q&A. I know we're coming up on time. And so here, under our Data Explorer, you can view your data lake objects and all of the records that are in them. So after you pull the data in, you do the mapping, and then all the information gets into Genie. If you're curious, you want to do any type of validation, make sure that the data that came into Genie is correct. You can view all of that here, all the records that came in via that data stream under data lake objects. So after you map your data stream to your data lake object, it becomes what's called a data model object. And the data model object is just the mapped data stream to the data lake object. And this is what you will deal with when you are in Genie. And you also have the ability under Data Explorer to look under any data model object and see all of the records that got pulled in so that you can do validation as well. So here you can see our data source, the CRM, and you can see the IDs, as well as some information about each one of those records. So here's the source case ID that got mapped that came in from our connected CRM system. All right. So one of the big things I wanted to touch on as well is identity resolution. So sometimes your company might have some dirty data, right? Things might be misspelled, things might be missing. So what you have the ability to do is create matching rules within Genie to unify your data. So let's say I have Tom Smith, and he's spelled with 2 T's on Smith, but the rest of his data matches, like his phone number, his address, and his birth date. Well, Tom Smith, that's spelled with 2 T's in one system and 1 T in another system, it's probably the same Tom Smith, right? Well, we don't want Tom Smith to be treated as 2 separate records within Genie. So what you have the ability to do here is create matching rules to create unified profiles so that now you're only working with 1 Tom Smith within Genie. And you're not really dealing with all those crazy duplicates that don't matter. So here, when we imported all of our data via data streams, we actually had 2 million separate disparate profiles or individuals. And we defined our matching rules so that it collapsed them all into 1.03 million unified profiles. And so now we can work with this cleaner set of data for when we actually want to send out an email via our segments, or when we want to send out a text message, right? We don't want to send the same Tom Smith, maybe the 3 of the same email when we already know he's the same person. So that's really the power of the unified profile. It allows you to, and the identity resolution feature allows you to collapse all of that dirty data into unified profiles that's a little bit cleaner to work with, so that now when you're building your segments, you're not having as many duplicates, as many, basically just data that you don't really want because it's the same person. All right, so 2 minutes left. So the last thing that I want to touch on is the calculated insights. And calculated insights, if there's any type of aggregation or, again, formulas, any type of transformation that you want to do on the data that's being brought in, you can use calculated insights to do those transformations as well as those aggregations. It's very simple to do. Some of them do use SQL on the back end. You can build SQL to do all your select statements. If you're not as familiar with SQL, there's also a very easy drag and drop builder as well that allows you to build these statements. And on the left, we have all of our data model objects as well as all of the fields underneath. And then this is possible. Then what you can do with calculated insights is then you can then build populations that then you can segment off of to send an email, send a text message, or anything you want to do, build a report off of. But calculated insights is very, very powerful for doing some of that data transformation as well as aggregation. All right, so I'm just going to wrap up. So play from current slide. So what did we learn today about Genie? So you learned all the connectors, how to get data into Genie. You learned about segments, identity resolution, calculated insights, and the streaming API, bulk API for getting data into Genie. And for anyone that's curious, these are some of the limits. We get a lot of questions about some of the limits within Genie. It's very, very scalable, but just in case you had any questions about what the specific limits are, here they are. And thank you for attending my session. I'll now do Q&A.
Anyone has questions?
Hi. I was wondering, are the standard objects for content management in Salesforce also standard in Genie?
Sorry, could you repeat?
The standard objects in
Yes.
Salesforce for content management.
For contact management?
Consent. The
Content,
GDPR objects.
Consent management.
Data privacy and GDPR?
Yes.
Are they also standard in Genie?
Are the are they
Also considered standard in Genie?
the privacy objects?
Yes, those ones.
Oh, so we don't have any specific objects within Genie related to privacy, but what Genie is actually doing is it's just meeting the privacy standards. So with Hyperforce, any like privacy or GDPR standards that might be in place for the data, that is what Genie is meeting. There's not actual objects within Genie for privacy
Okay.
standards.
My next question
Mhm.
is, so is there a difference between of treatment of standard objects and custom objects?
So Genie does not have standard objects and custom objects in the way that Salesforce does. What it has is data lake objects and data model objects. And so data lake objects are what your data streams are populating. And then data model objects is the mapping between your data lake object and your data stream. Now, there are like contacts and accounts. You will see those in Genie, but on the back end, you cannot edit them like you could typically edit a standard or custom object in Salesforce. Like you can't add custom fields, all that stuff is not possible. But what it can do is it can pull in your contacts from your Salesforce CRM system, your case data from your CRM system, and it can populate objects within Genie.
Hi, thanks for the great presentation. Once I have all this data in Genie, can I build a user interface which is for the end user to display some of this stuff, either on the platform? Can I use drag and drop or use it as an external object or even Lightning Web Components?
Yes, so Genie works with all of the automation tools that you would see in the standard Salesforce platform. So you can use Flow, you can also use Apex, and you can also build custom Lightning Web Components in Genie as well. Yes, there is the standard UI as well. So if you were to go to the contact page or the account page within Genie, you can edit the page layout just as you would in Salesforce and add fields to that page and remove fields from that page.
Maybe a basic question, but it's called is it CDP or is it an extra license that you need to purchase, or is it part of the entire thing? Is that the new branding, or how do you see it?
Yes, that's a great question. So as far as the licensing, I'm not sure exactly how that works. I would need like a sales, like AE would probably be better to answer that. But in terms of this customer data platform, yes, Genie is built on top of the customer data platform. So CDP is on the back end of Genie. What will be coming, safe harbor forward-looking statement, is there will be more connectors and bundles as well as a lot more functionality that's going to extend Genie. So right now, Genie really looks kind of similar to CDP, but it will very shortly not look like CDP.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
Hi, I have a question about the API limitations. Let's say I need to ingest hundreds of millions of records daily. Would that be possible? Because it seems like, nowadays Marketing Cloud isn't, the APIs aren't that powerful, so you got to do FTP imports. Would that be possible to ingest that much information into CDP just use an API?
Yes. So Genie is meant to ingest lots and lots and lots of data, both via batch and via the streaming API. Obviously, there are limits, so that limit slide, you will have to abide by those limits, but they are pretty, they're not that stringent. They're pretty flexible in terms of getting the data in.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Still time for last question? But then don't hesitate to speak with Danielle after.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is about the field. For example, when we do the mappings and we have different format. For example, we have a date format in the source and a date format in the mapping. and it's different, for example, the way that are formatting. Is there any way in Genie that do a transformation, or do we need to do the transformation before by using, for example, MuleSoft or something like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Genie, in terms of date and time formatting, I haven't actually looked into what are all the capabilities in terms of getting that formatting in. I would suggest that either it's formatted in the source system before it comes into Genie, and maybe you like just define the Genie field as like text or something, and it just takes it already formatted. There is the ability, once again, with calculated insights to do some of that transformation. So you could write like a query. Also, there is the ability to use Apex or Flow after the fact to, once again, continue to transform that data and possibly format it if you want. But those, I think, would be like the best options.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
everyone.